If you are over 60 and you wake up every single morning feeling like you never went to bed, if you push through your day on willpower alone and crash completely by 3 in the afternoon, if your doctor has run tests and told you everything looks fine and yet fine is the last word you would use to describe how you feel, then I need you to stay with me for the next 15 minutes because there is a very real possibility that the answer to your exhaustion is not hiding in a blood test you have not taken yet. It is sitting right now in your medicine cabinet, on a shelf you open every single morning without a second thought. I am Dr. James Harlow. I have spent over 2 decades working with adults over 60, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that one of the most overlooked, most consistently missed causes of crushing fatigue in older adults is not a disease. It is the very medications that were prescribed to protect them. Not because those medications are bad in themselves, but because the aging body processes them in ways that are fundamentally different from the body of a 50-year-old. And almost no one is having that conversation. Before we go further, I want you to do something right now. Think about how many pills you take every morning. Write that number in the comments. Just the number. No names, no details. Just how many? And if you have ever noticed that your fatigue got noticeably worse after starting a new medication, add the word yes to your comment. I want to know what is happening in your life because this is not an abstract medical discussion. This is your day-to-day reality and it deserves a real answer. Let us start with the one that surprises people the most, because it is the medication most commonly associated with protecting the heart. The one that millions of seniors take every morning with complete confidence that they are doing the right thing. Statins are prescribed to lower cholesterol and reduce the risk of heart attack. Between 50 and 70 years old, the evidence for their benefit is solid and well established. But here is what happens inside your body when you take a statin after 60, and why that process explains a fatigue so deep that patients describe it as feeling disconnected from their own legs. Statins work by blocking a specific pathway in your liver, the same pathway your body uses to produce cholesterol. But that pathway does not only produce cholesterol, it also produces a molecule called coenzyme Q10. You may have seen it on supplement shelves, but what most people do not realize is that CoQ10 is not optional. It is not a bonus nutrient. It is the fuel that powers your mitochondria, the tiny structures inside every cell in your body that convert food into actual energy. Without adequate CoQ10, your mitochondria cannot do their job. They sputter, they slow down, and you feel it in every single movement you make. Research found that patients on statins had CoQ10 blood levels significantly lower than those not taking them. And the critical detail is this: the symptoms of CoQ10 depletion, deep muscle fatigue, weakness in the legs, brain fog, and complete exhaustion after minimal activity are virtually identical to what most seniors and their doctors attribute to age, not to the medication sitting on the shelf. Does this mean you should stop your statin tonight? Absolutely not. Never adjust or stop a prescribed medication without speaking directly to your doctor first. But it does mean that if you are on a statin and you have been exhausted for months and your doctor has not mentioned CoQ10, you have a very specific question to bring to your next appointment. Now let us move to the second pill. This one is even more common than statins, and the fatigue it causes has a specific pattern that most people never connect to the medication at all. Beta blockers are prescribed for high blood pressure, heart rhythm problems, and heart failure. They work by slowing the heart and reducing its workload. And that is precisely the problem for people over 60. Your heart at 65 is not the same organ it was at 45. It is already working harder to push blood through vessels that have become less elastic with age. Beta blockers slow that already working harder heart even further. And the result is a drop in circulation to your brain and your muscles that can be staggering. The fatigue from beta blockers is not the kind that feels like sleepiness. It is the kind that feels like heaviness. Like every limb weighs more than it should. Climbing a flight of stairs that you once walked up without thinking suddenly requires a full stop at the top. A short walk leaves you needing to sit down. Your thinking slows in a way that feels almost physical, like thoughts are moving through something thick. And because this creeps in gradually after you start the medication, it almost never gets connected to the pill. It gets called aging. Research published in the British Medical Journal followed older adults on beta blockers and found that exercise tolerance, the ability of the body to sustain physical activity, was significantly reduced compared to those managing blood pressure through other means. And reduced exercise tolerance is not just a comfort issue. In older adults, it is directly tied to muscle loss, fall risk, and cognitive decline. The downstream consequences are serious. Again, the answer here is never to stop your medication unilaterally. The answer is to have a specific, informed conversation about whether your current dose and your current medication type are still the right fit for your body as it is now, not as it was when the prescription was written 3 years ago. Now, let us talk about the third pill. And this one I want you to pay close attention to because it is prescribed for something completely unrelated to fatigue, and yet the fatigue it causes can be the most disorienting of all five. Proton pump inhibitors, which most people know by brand names like omeprazole or pantoprazole, are prescribed for acid reflux, heartburn, and stomach ulcers. They are among the most widely taken medications in the world, and for many people, they provide real relief. But here's what they are doing at the same time, silently, without any warning. Your stomach acid does not just help you digest food. It is the key that unlocks certain critical nutrients from the food you eat, particularly vitamin B12, magnesium, and iron. Without adequate stomach acid, those nutrients pass through your system largely unused. You eat the right foods, you think you are nourishing yourself, and yet your cells are running on empty. And the cruel detail is that the older you are, the more dependent you are on that acid to absorb these nutrients, because your stomach naturally produces less acid after 60 to begin with. Add a proton pump inhibitor on top of that, and the deficiency can become profound. Vitamin B12 deficiency caused by long-term proton pump inhibitor use is so well documented that the FDA added a formal warning about it years ago. And what does B12 deficiency feel like? Exhaustion that no amount of sleep resolves. Brain fog, a strange tingling or numbness in the hands and feet. And in more serious cases, balance problems and memory changes that can look alarmingly like the early stages of cognitive decline. Magnesium deficiency adds muscle weakness and disrupted sleep to that picture. Iron deficiency layers in breathlessness and the sensation that your body simply does not have enough fuel. A study in the Journal of the American Medical Association found that adults who had taken proton pump inhibitors for more than 2 years had a significantly elevated risk of B12 deficiency. 2 years is not a long time, and millions of seniors have been on these medications for 5, 7, 10 years without ever having their B12 magnesium or iron levels checked in the context of that medication. Here's what I want you to ask your doctor at your next visit. Not whether to stop your proton pump inhibitor, but whether you have ever been tested for B12, magnesium, and iron deficiency since starting it, and whether a reassessment of whether you still need it at the current dose makes sense now. The fourth pill on this list is one that gets prescribed with the best intentions and causes fatigue through a mechanism so direct, so literal, that once you understand it, you will never look at your medicine cabinet the same way again. Sleeping pills and sedatives, including benzodiazepines and the newer class called Z drugs, are prescribed because people over 60 often struggle with sleep. The sleep disruption is real. The exhaustion from poor sleep is real. But here is the trap. These medications do not produce the kind of sleep your brain actually needs. They suppress the deeper stages of sleep, the stages where memory consolidation happens, where cellular repair occurs, and where the brain clears out the metabolic waste that accumulates during waking hours. You spend 8 hours unconscious and wake up feeling like you barely rested, and then the day brings a fog, a slowness, a dragging heaviness that the medical world calls residual sedation. Most patients call it just feeling old, but there is something even more concerning about this class of medications in older adults. The aging brain is more sensitive to these compounds. What was a reasonable dose at 50 can produce a degree of sedation at 70 that lingers well into the following day. Studies published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society found that benzodiazepine use in older adults was associated with significantly impaired cognitive performance, increased fall risk, and a pattern of daytime fatigue that compounded over time rather than improving. The medication prescribed for exhaustion was causing more exhaustion. That cycle, once you see it, is almost impossible to unsee. Now here's something critical. If you have been taking these medications for a long time, Stopping them abruptly can be dangerous. This is one of the few medication classes where tapering under direct medical supervision is genuinely essential. But starting an honest conversation with your doctor about whether sleep hygiene improvements, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or a reassessment of the underlying cause of your sleep disruption might allow for a safe reduction is absolutely within your rights. And now we come to the fifth pill. And this one carries a particular weight because it is prescribed for a condition that is genuinely serious. The condition itself can cause fatigue, and the medication can cause fatigue too. Separating which is one of the most important things you can do for your energy. Diuretics, commonly called water pills, are prescribed for high blood pressure, heart failure, and swelling in the legs. They work by flushing excess fluid from the body through the kidneys. And for the conditions they treat, they can be life-saving. But every time your kidneys flush fluid, they also flush electrolytes: potassium, magnesium, sodium. These are not background players. They are the electrical substrates that allow your muscle cells and nerve cells to generate energy, fire signals, and contract properly. Without them in adequate balance, your muscles feel weak, your heart rhythm can become irregular, your legs feel leaden, and your body generates a fatigue that is not about tired cells. It is about cells that literally cannot fire the way they are supposed to. The tragic detail here is that electrolyte imbalance caused by diuretics is something that can be measured easily with a standard blood test, and yet the test does not always get run at the frequency needed to catch a creeping imbalance before it becomes severe. A study in the European Heart Journal found that low magnesium levels, which diuretics are known to cause, were significantly associated with fatigue, muscle weakness, and cardiac arrhythmias in older adults. And low potassium from diuretics has been linked to profound muscle exhaustion, the kind where standing up from a chair feels like an athletic event. If you are on a diuretic and you have been feeling bone-deep tired, I want you to ask your doctor one simple question. When were my potassium, magnesium, and sodium levels last checked? And are they being monitored regularly given the medication I am on? That is not a confrontational question. That is an informed patient asking for appropriate care. Now let me give you the practical framework for taking all of this into your next doctor's appointment, because knowing the information is only useful if you know how to act on it. First, write down every medication you take, including the dose and how long you have been on it. Bring that list. Second, note when your fatigue started or got worse. If it changed after starting a new medication or after a dose increase, write that down specifically. Third, ask your doctor this single question. Could any of my current medications be contributing to my fatigue? A good doctor will welcome that question. It will prompt a conversation about CoQ10 levels if you are on a statin, about whether your beta blocker dose is still calibrated to your current physiology, about B12, magnesium, and iron if you are on a proton pump inhibitor, about sleep architecture and tapering options if you are on a sedative, about electrolyte monitoring if you are on a diuretic. These are not exotic requests. They are basic geriatric medicine, and you deserve them. Here's what I want you to carry away from today. Your fatigue is not a verdict. It is not the inevitable price of the years you have lived. It is a signal. And in a significant number of cases, that signal is pointing directly at something that can be adjusted, monitored, or changed with your doctor's guidance. The medications we covered today were all prescribed for real reasons. I am not asking you to distrust your doctor or to walk away from treatments that are protecting you. I am asking you to walk toward a more complete conversation, one where your energy is treated as a vital sign worth protecting, not a complaint to be explained away. Open that medicine cabinet tonight. Look at what is on those shelves, and tomorrow morning, make the call. I am Dr. James Harlow. If this gave you something real today, share it with someone you love who starts every morning with a handful of pills and ends every evening completely spent. Subscribe so you never miss information that could change how you feel. And drop your medication count in the comments right now. I read every single one.